You check your bank account on a Tuesday afternoon. The balance reads $12,400, maybe $15,000, maybe more. A small wave of relief washes over you. That number feels safe, responsible, like proof you're doing something right. You worked overtime for that cushion, skipped vacations, said no to dinners out, watched that balance climb month after month, and every time you checked it, you felt a little more secure. Here's what nobody told you. That feeling of security is costing you real money every single month. The average checking account in America earns 0.07% interest. That's not a typo, 0.07%. Meanwhile, inflation is running at 2.4%. Your money isn't sitting still, it's actively shrinking, losing purchasing power while you sleep, while you work, while you congratulate yourself for being responsible. That $12,000 you felt so good about, in 10 years, it buys what $9,000 buys today. You didn't spend a dime, you just watched inflation eat nearly a quarter of your savings. This is one of the most common financial mistakes in America. Millions of people are making it right now without realizing anything is wrong. They keep tens of thousands of dollars in accounts earning almost nothing, feeling proud of their discipline, completely unaware that their money is working against them. I'm going to break down exactly why keeping too much cash in the bank is a mistake, how much you actually need sitting in low-interest accounts, and what to do with the rest so your money starts working as hard as you do. Let's get into it. The first problem, your money is the laziest employee you'll ever have. Think about what you did to earn that paycheck, the early mornings, the difficult conversations, the stress you carried home at the end of the day. You traded hours of your life for dollars, deposited those dollars into your checking account, and then those dollars did absolutely nothing. They just sat there, motionless, earning fractions of a penny while you went back to work the next morning. If you had an employee who showed up, sat at their desk, produced nothing, and actually cost you money every day they came to work, you'd fire them immediately. Yet most people let their money behave exactly this way for years without questioning it. Here's the math that changes everything. Take that same $10,000 sitting in a checking account earning 0.07%. After 1 year, you've earned $7 in interest. $7 for an entire year of letting a bank hold your money. Move that $10,000 to a high-yield savings account earning 4%, which is readily available in 2026, and you earn $400. Same money, same effort, 57 times more return. But it gets better. Put that $10,000 into a simple index fund tracking the stock market, which has averaged around 10% annually over the past century, and you're looking at roughly $1,000 in growth, 140 times more than your checking account would have paid. Over 10 years, the differences become staggering. Your checking account balance stays at $10,000, technically, though it buys less every year. The high-yield savings account grows to nearly $15,000. The index fund investment more than doubles to approximately $26,000. Same starting point, same money you already earned. Dramatically different outcomes based entirely on where you let it sit. Now extend that timeline to 20 years. The checking account still shows $10,000, worth maybe $6,000 in today's purchasing power after inflation. The high-yield savings account reaches around $22,000. The index fund investment over $67,000 from a single $10,000 starting point. That's not magic, that's not luck. That's compound growth doing exactly what it's supposed to do when you give it somewhere to work. Your money should work while you sleep. It should earn while you're at dinner with friends. It should grow while you're on vacation. If it's not doing any of those things, you've hired the worst possible employee, and you're paying them to make you poor. The second problem, you probably have way more than you actually need. The standard advice says keep 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses in an emergency fund. Essential, that word matters. Your essentials are rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, minimum debt payments, and insurance. The baseline cost of keeping a roof over your head and food in your refrigerator. Most people dramatically overestimate this number because they include discretionary spending they could cut in an actual emergency. Your Netflix subscription is not essential. Neither are restaurant meals, gym memberships, or new clothes. In a genuine emergency, job loss, medical crisis, unexpected relocation, you'd cut those expenses immediately. Your emergency fund only needs to cover what you can't cut. Add up your true essentials, multiply by 3 for a basic emergency fund, or 6 if you want extra cushion. If you're self-employed or work in an unstable industry, multiply by 9. That number is almost certainly lower than what you currently have sitting in cash. According to Federal Reserve data, the average American household holds around $17,000 in their checking account alone. Many have far more. The median is lower at $2,800, but that average gets pulled up by people with 30, 40, 50,000 or more just sitting there.
When financial advisors dig into these balances with clients, they consistently find the same pattern. Someone has $40,000 in their checking account, claims it's their emergency fund, but their actual monthly essentials total $2,000. 6 months of true emergencies would require $12,000. The remaining $28,000 is what advisors call fear money, cash sitting idle because letting go of it feels psychologically uncomfortable, even when keeping it costs real money and lost opportunity. Fear money feels like safety. In reality, it's an expensive monument to anxiety. If you've been telling yourself that giant checking balance is prudent financial planning, run the actual numbers. Calculate your genuine emergency fund requirement. Everything above that number should be somewhere else entirely, somewhere it can actually grow. The third problem, seeing the money makes you spend the money. Here's a psychological trap that catches almost everyone. You log into your bank account, you see $15,000 sitting there. Your brain interprets that number as, I have lots of money. And because you feel rich in that moment, you buy things you wouldn't otherwise buy. The shoes you've been eyeing, dinner out instead of cooking, that weekend trip you convinced yourself was reasonable because, after all, you've got money in the bank. The problem? That $15,000 wasn't spending money. Most of it was supposed to be your emergency fund. Some of it was savings for a house deposit. Some of it was money you hadn't figured out what to do with yet. But because it all sat together in one account displaying one large number, your brain processed it as available. This isn't a character flaw, it's basic psychology. Visible money feels like spendable money. The research confirms it. People who keep large checking balances consistently spend more than people who separate their money into designated accounts. I've experienced this myself. Every time I've let money accumulate in a single account without structure, my spending drifted upward in ways I didn't consciously notice. A slightly nicer restaurant, an upgrade I didn't need. Small decisions that felt insignificant in the moment, but added up to hundreds of dollars by the end of the month. The fix is structural, not willpower-based. Automate your finances so money moves before you see it. Your paycheck lands, and before you check the balance, automatic transfers have already pulled money into savings, investments, and bill payments. What remains in checking is genuinely what you can spend. When your spending account shows $2,000 instead of $15,000, you make different decisions. You cook dinner. You think twice about the shoes. You wait on the weekend trip until you've actually saved for it. The goal isn't deprivation, it's accuracy. Your checking account should reflect what's actually available for monthly spending, nothing more. Everything else belongs somewhere you won't accidentally mistake it for discretionary cash. The fourth problem, your cash loses value every single day. Inflation isn't some abstract economic concept, it's a silent tax on every dollar you own. The annual inflation rate in the United States runs around 2.4% as of early 2026. That means the purchasing power of your money decreases by roughly that amount every year, automatically, whether you do anything or not. Your checking account pays 0.07%. Inflation takes 2.4%. You're losing over 2% annually on every dollar sitting in that account. Think about what that actually means in your daily life. The grocery trip that cost $150 3 years ago now costs $170. The rent that seemed manageable when you signed the lease keeps climbing while your checking balance stays flat. Gas, insurance, healthcare, dining out, everything inches upward while your idle cash provides zero defense. $1 in 2016 bought significantly more than $1 buys today. The same $10,000 that felt substantial a decade ago now covers noticeably less. Groceries cost more, rent costs more, gas costs more, healthcare costs more. The number in your account stayed the same while everything around it got more expensive. This is why cash in a low-interest account is actually a losing investment. You're not preserving your money by keeping it in checking. You're watching it slowly evaporate. The bank uses your deposits to make loans, earns substantial interest on those loans, pays you almost nothing for the privilege of holding your money, and meanwhile, inflation gnaws away at whatever value remains. The only way to beat inflation is to put your money somewhere that grows faster than prices rise. A high-yield savings account at 4% keeps you ahead of current inflation. Stock market investments averaging 8 to 10% build actual wealth. Cash and checking earning 0.07% guarantees you'll have less purchasing power next year than you have today. Every day your money sits idle is a day it loses ground. The fifth problem, banks only protect so much. The FDIC insures deposits up to $250,000 per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. If your bank fails, the government guarantees you'll get your money back, but only up to that limit. Most people never approach that threshold, but if you're diligently accumulating cash because you believe it's the safest place for your money, you might eventually get there. And anything above that limit, completely unprotected.
3 of the 4 largest bank failures in American history happened in 2023. All 3 institutions held abnormally large percentages of uninsured deposits. The government stepped in to protect depositors in those specific cases, but that intervention was extraordinary, not a guarantee for future failures. If your checking account is approaching significant sums, you face a choice. Spread your cash across multiple banks to stay within FDIC limits at each institution, or, more intelligently, stop accumulating so much cash in the first place and put the excess somewhere it can actually grow. The money above your emergency fund requirement shouldn't be sitting in any bank account. It should be invested, earning real returns while remaining diversified across asset classes, rather than concentrated in a single bank's deposit base. Keeping massive cash reserves isn't the prudent move it feels like. Beyond a certain point, it's just risk without corresponding reward. The 6th problem, idle cash attracts idle decisions. When money sits in an account doing nothing, it creates psychological pressure to do something with it eventually. Unfortunately, that something often isn't wise. People with large idle balances become targets for themselves as much as anyone else. They make impulsive investments because they feel like they should be doing something with the money. They fall for pitches that promise returns too good to be true. They let friends and family members talk them into questionable ventures. Scams have become sophisticated enough to fool extremely intelligent people. A recent case involved a multi-millionaire entrepreneur who lost over $1 million to a scheme that began with legitimate-looking communications and escalated into fake cryptocurrency investments. He wasn't stupid. He was successful. He had money sitting idle, felt social pressure to put it to work, and made decisions under conditions that bypassed his normal judgment. Money with a clear purpose resists these temptations. Your emergency fund has a purpose, genuine emergencies. Your retirement account has a purpose, long-term growth. Your investment portfolio has a purpose, building wealth over decades. But cash just sitting in a checking account with no designated role, that money is waiting for trouble. It's waiting for a bad decision, an impulsive purchase, a convincing pitch that doesn't deserve your trust. Structure your money so every dollar has an assignment. This isn't about rigidity, it's about protection. Purposeless money eventually finds purposes you'll regret. The seventh problem, you're probably paying fees on top of earning nothing. Here's an insult most people overlook entirely. Many traditional checking accounts charge monthly maintenance fees, often $10 to $15, unless you maintain a minimum balance or meet direct deposit requirements. Some charge ATM fees for using machines outside their network. Others charge overdraft fees that can reach $35 per occurrence. The average American pays nearly $300 annually in banking fees. $300 to store money that's already losing value to inflation while earning almost nothing in interest. You're paying the bank for the privilege of letting them profit from your deposits. Online banks have largely eliminated these fees because they don't maintain expensive branch networks. No physical locations means lower overhead, which translates to no monthly fees, no minimum balance requirements, and dramatically higher interest rates on the accounts they do offer. If your current bank charges any fees whatsoever on your checking or savings accounts, you're choosing to lose money twice, once to fees, once to opportunity cost. Switching takes a few hours of setup. The annual savings can reach several $100s before you even consider the interest rate difference. So what should you actually do? First, calculate your true emergency fund requirement. Add up your genuine essential expenses, housing, utilities, groceries, minimum debt payments, insurance, and multiply by 3 to 6 months, depending on your risk tolerance and employment stability. That number, and only that number, stays liquid and accessible. Second, keep your emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. The best options in 2026 pay around 4 to 5% APY, more than 10 times the national average for traditional savings accounts. The money remains accessible when you need it while actually earning meaningful interest. Online banks without physical branch overhead consistently offer the highest rates. Names like Vero, Axos, and Wealthfront regularly appear at the top of rate comparison lists. Third, structure your checking account properly. Keep roughly 1 to 2 months of actual expenses in checking, enough to cover your bills and daily spending with a reasonable buffer for timing variations. Transfer everything else out immediately when your paycheck arrives. Automate this process so it happens without your involvement. Fourth, understand the 5-year rule for investing. Money you'll need within the next 5 years for a house down payment, a wedding, a major purchase should stay in high-yield savings or certificates of deposit rather than the stock market. Why? Because markets fluctuate in the short term. Your investment might be worth $50,000 today, $45,000 next month, and $55,000 after. If you need that money in 2 years for a house deposit, you can't afford to sell during a dip. But for money you won't touch for 5 years or more, short-term volatility smooths out over time.
Historically, the stock market has never lost money over any 20-year period. The longer your timeline, the more you benefit from compound growth, rather than fearing temporary drops. Fifth, invest everything beyond your emergency fund and short-term goals. If you have $20,000 sitting in accounts and your emergency fund requirement is $12,000, the extra $8,000 should be in a brokerage account invested in diversified index funds. For money you won't need for 5 or more years, the stock market has historically delivered average returns around 10% annually, dramatically outperforming any savings account. If employer-sponsored retirement accounts are available to you, maximize any matching contributions first. That's free money, an instant 100% return before your investment even grows. Then consider a Roth IRA, which allows your investments to grow tax-free. Then a taxable brokerage account. The specific vehicles matter less than the fundamental principle. Money you won't need soon should be invested, not sitting idle. Sixth, create systems that remove willpower from the equation. Set up automatic transfers that move money to savings and investments before you see your full paycheck.
Treat investing like a bill that gets paid first, not an optional activity for whatever's left over. Most brokerages allow automatic recurring investments. Use them. The less you have to think about moving money, the more consistently you'll actually do it. Here's what most people never realize. Every mistake in this video traces back to the same root cause. Nobody taught you how money actually works. Keeping too much cash in checking? That happens because nobody explained the difference between saving and investing, or when each one makes sense. Losing money to inflation? That happens because nobody showed you the math of purchasing power over time. Spending more because you see a big balance? That happens because nobody taught you how to structure accounts so your brain makes better decisions automatically. Financial illiteracy is expensive, and it's expensive in ways that feel invisible until you run the numbers years later and realize what you lost. I made a complete breakdown of financial literacy that covers everything the school system skipped: how debt actually works, how credit scores get calculated, how retirement accounts create tax advantages most people never use, how compound interest builds wealth when it's working for you instead of against you. That video is linked right here. If anything in this video surprised you or made you realize you've been leaving money on the table, that's your next watch. Because here's the truth. The difference between people who build wealth and people who don't usually isn't income. It isn't luck. It isn't some special knowledge reserved for the financially privileged. It's knowing where money should actually go and building systems that put it there automatically. Your cash sitting idle in a bank account isn't safe. It's slowly disappearing. The bank profits from your deposits while you lose ground to inflation every single year. That's not security. That's a slow loss you've convinced yourself is a feature. The alternative isn't complicated. Emergency fund in a high-yield account earning 4 to 5%. Long-term savings invested in diversified index funds, averaging 8 to 10% over time. Checking account holding only what you actually need for this month's expenses. Automatic transfers handling the logistics so you never have to think about it. That structure lets your money finally do the work it should have been doing all along. You already earned it. You already sacrificed for it. Now stop letting it sit there doing nothing and put it somewhere it can actually build the future you're working toward.
Stop letting bad debt and lifestyle creep steal your paycheck and start building real wealth with the power of compound interest. Welcome to Ariana Invest.